It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand, right?
Just as I thought, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just as I thought, your mic didn't go on because it's not connected to anything right now. We had some technical surprise technical issues here this morning. Peggy's whole computer network just fried over the week, so she lost everything, all the connections we have here. So.
I didn't lose data. I just lost connection links and.
All right, that's fun. And
other than the files that just won't open on my computer, but that's a whole other problem.
Okay, great. So we'll just wample forward here, and I got to tell you,
what was that word?
Wample.
Wample?
Well, a friend of mine used to say that. He used to say, "We're wampling along," and I kind of like that. That's it's a good way to say things.
And you still have your glasses on.
Yeah, I do. Kathleen said, "You look smarter when you have the glasses on." So I can't imagine that anything makes me look smarter. But we're giving it a go. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are very, very pleased to have some really terrific people on the program. As you know, last week we discussed the Bell Bowl Prairie situation out at Rockford International Airport. And for those of you who have not been paying attention, and I got a feeling that about 99.9% of our viewers know what has happened in the past week, which is to say the airport authority backed off and decided they're not going to plow up this remnant prairie. Really nice. Thank you.
Now.
Hey, thank you guys for doing that, okay? Here's the problem, and we'll talk about it in the second hour. That's not the end of the story, not by a long shot. There are
it's too easy.
Yeah, that's just too easy. They just said, well, because they bowed to public pressure, and there was a lot of public pressure on to keep that. They would have looked really, really bad, and it would have resonated for a long time in Rockford. Now they've bought some time, and we'll talk about it in the second hour. But that issue is still ongoing. But the good news is that there's at least a temporary victory out in Rockford. So we'll discuss that later, and we'll be following that as the weeks and months go by. But today we have to move on to another issue. And that is something we've discussed on our show many times, and it's about concentrated animal feeding operations, also known as CAFOs. I want to issue a caveat here before we begin, because I know there's some folks who go, uh-oh, I don't want to see that. I'm not going to show any pictures of animals in distress, except from a very far distance, all right? So it's not anything that is going to make you have to stop eating breakfast. We're going to talk policy here today, and we're going to talk natural resources and how this all affects our natural resources in the state of Illinois and in Iowa and in the United States in general. So that's coming up in just a second. But I also want to let you know that, as I mentioned before, Peggy and I at the 10 o'clock hour will be discussing a number of issues, including what's going on at Bell Bowl Prairie, where you can take your pumpkins to be smashed.
And or recycled.
Right, because today, of course, is Halloween. Oh, wait a second. Where's my...
Scary.
Oh, we fell down here. Hold on.
Okay, it's Halloween. Mike's looking for something. I think I know what he's looking for.
Yeah, I know because I did it on the preview the other
And
day.
you've done this on the show over the years.
What? What mean? You mean?
You've done-
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. Our friend the bat
The bat.
for
The bat.
Halloween. Yes,
And I've got my owl on for Halloween. I don't know if you can see it. I've got my owl.
That's far too sophisticated for me. I just like.
Well, I don't have a bat finger puppet.
You ought to get one. Everybody needs a bat finger puppet. So there. Okay. Oh no, the snowy owl doesn't count. Not for Halloween. And I can guarantee you, we're going to show you something very scary in the 10 o'clock hour that has to do with me. We talked about it before. Not Peggy and I talked about it, and I'm going to. Well, I won't say anymore. So we'll do that. Rick DiMaio will be here.
Right along.
Our meteorologist Rick DiMaio will be here today to talk about cool weather. Guess what? Fall really is coming this time. And
No.
yeah, get ready to pay a lot more for your gas bill this winter because those prices are skyrocketing. So this is going to be the winter of our discontent. So that said, I think we should go immediately to our guests. Let's bring them all in, and I'm seeing that their audios are up, so that's good. So that part of the tech is working. Let's start in the upper right-hand corner. That's our friend Karen Hudson from the Illinois Coalition for Clean Air and Water. She's been on our show many times.
Pumpkin scarf on.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. And you've got a pumpkin.
She's got her pumpkin.
Pumpkin tree, pumpkin scarf, pumpkin coffee.
Wow. You don't have the pumpkin spice latte, whatever they call it at the. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. And the pumpkin spice latte, of course, has no pumpkin in it at all. Just letting you know that is. Anyway, Karen is the co-founder of the Illinois Coalition for Clean Air and Water, which assists and empowers citizens on CAFO issues in over 45 counties in Illinois. Also a senior regional representative for the Socially Responsible Agriculture Project, which is SRAP or SRAP. And then in our lower left-hand screen, there's Kathy Martin from Norman, Oklahoma. I've got family in Norman, so it's good to have you here. She's an engineer and technical assistant to SRAP. She has worked on CAFO issues since 1997, has worked with communities in 25 states across the country, looking at literally hundreds of manure management plans. And I love what you said at the end. You describe yourself as a poop expert. Okay. We need poop experts on the show.
Never dinged a poop expert on the. Never had a poop expert on the show.
And it's good to have back our buddy Chris Petersen, an independent, regenerative, and sustainable family farmer. Also a member of SRAP. He says he's semi-retired, but I'll bet if I looked at your work hours each week, Chris, yeah, thank you, Karen. Karen's gone, that guy ain't no. But he's raises non-confinement, antibiotic-free Berkshire pigs and organic hay, and has worked on the front line of advocacy for 30 years against industrialized agriculture. In fact, as I mentioned in the preview we shot the other day, you were even on 60 Minutes, which was very cool. And you just don't hold back, do you, Chris?
Nope, go get them.
All right. Okay. Well, I want to start with Karen. I want to start with you and the general picture here, the general picture of of CAFOs, confined or concentrated. Both words are used. Concentrated animal feeding operations, and why, in general, they pose a danger, not just Illinois, but throughout the country.
Well, where do I start? They're one of the big, yeah, CAFOs are concentrated.
Well, and maybe the best place, Karen, define what a CAFO is.
Well, let's just do this for the audience. These are large-scale barns that house hundreds to hundreds of thousands of animals in one spot at one time, and their waste is collected either in large lagoons or waste pits outside the buildings or collected underneath these buildings. And these animals never see the light of day. What the big problem is, concentration of numbers of animals and the amount of emissions they produce through the fans that are exhausted through these buildings, and the amount of waste that's spread onto the surrounding communities, causing surface water problems across the country, not just in Illinois. The other issue that I'm very concerned about even involves Chicagoans, people in urban areas, because of the antibiotic resistance issue. And antibiotics are used in factory farms to keep these animals alive in these stressed conditions and to make them grow faster. Now, we've had some things happen along the way where they're trying to limit antibiotics, but we're not seeing as much progress as we'd like. So we're seeing antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So those of you who go to the hospital with a MRSA or methicillin-resistant staph infection, that's an antibiotic-resistant infection. Antibiotic resistance is also generated at factory farms due to the overuse of antibiotics. So that's a very big health concern for those in the meat supply, people who live near these facilities, and people who are exposed to the water or the air near these sites.
And you haven't even mentioned the cruelty to the animals inside. We're talking mainly today, we're going to be talking about the effects to people and to our natural resources and to our natural areas. But there's the cruelty to animals that is one of the main factors of CAFOs.
It is. They're stressed, and they actually have a higher pathogen loading rate in their manure because of their immune systems being stressed. So that goes hand in hand with the stress that they experience in this situation.
All right, and I want to pop something up here that you sent me. It's welcome to the neighborhood, and you have what do you say? Dead boxes directly under fans. What's
right?
Those
are mortality. Yeah, those are mortality boxes. And
what's a mortality box?
What's a mortality box? There's a certain amount of mortality at each of these facilities, as in any livestock operation, whether it be a confined operation or pastured operation. But in Illinois and other states, you are allowed to compost these carcasses, and there's a proper way to do it and an improper way to do it. They're supposed to be covered with a organic material up to a certain depth. And in Illinois, you aren't forced to actually put lids or covers on these dead boxes. And often other animals, such as coyotes or other animals around the site, will drag these carcasses off site. The one very interesting thing about this photograph is that these dead boxes are located right under the fans that are exhausting the fumes from the building. And this is facing towards one of the neighbors, well, two of the neighbors, three of the neighbors actually. And one of those neighbors has actually moved because of the intolerable emissions that they have been forced to experience from this site.
Well, yeah, that's something that the neighbors to these operations experience all the time. I'm going to pop up another photo here, and you look at this from the outside, and you go, "That's not so bad." It's there's a building and whatever else. And I encourage Kathy and Chris for you jump in at any time as well. Actually, Chris, you're believe you're the one who sent me this photo. So this is another welcome to the neighborhood photo, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And the point I make a lot is this is not farms. This is not farming. This is industry. And, the antibiotic issues, animal welfare issues, the neighborhood impacts, everything seems to center on neighborhoods not wanting these types of operations.
Yeah, and then if you look from the sky, you're likely to see something like this. And a word of advice: if you see a big purple lagoon, run. Okay, because so what? Kathy, maybe you can address this. What is in the big purple lagoon?
Well, actually, the purple color is indicative that an anaerobic bacteria is degrading the waste. So it's actually a good sign for a large-scale anaerobic lagoon. The problem is the size of it and the massive amount of waste that's inside these lagoons. If you were an engineer and you looked at this, you'd say, how come it has such a weird shape? Why isn't it rectangular or whatever? Well, what they did is they built this to fit the property, not to be a good engineering design. Does that make sense? Number two, it's probably not lined. If you look around the edges of the berm, you don't see any black plastic. So it's probably sitting straight on the dirt, compacted dirt possibly. So this thing will be constantly seeping into the groundwater. And that's a story you can read from the sky, right?
Yeah,
I don't see anything in there that looks very natural as far as if you showed a similar picture of cows grazing on the pasture, you get that very calm feeling when you're driving down the road and you see cows munching on grass. But when you see these big barns, to me, that is not natural,
well,
right?
you're not certainly not seeing any animals outside of those
seen there.
facilities. Yeah,
My,
and
my, I flew over these facilities in Greene County back in 1997, similar facilities in Illinois. And we were in a small single engine plane, and we put down in the next county over with severe headaches. There were 80,000 hogs at that site,
wait
and
a
they were
second, you
cited.
were in a plane and you still got headaches from this?
Yes, it was in the late morning hours, and the emissions were actually heading up. And we put down, and everyone, took Tylenol in the next stop that we made to refuel. And I would never have believed it had I not experienced that down in Greene County, Illinois. They were cited for double loading their lagoons because it was still under construction, and there were hogs in other buildings. They were piping the manure over, and there was more sludge in that lagoon than should have been, and the bacteria was not digesting properly, as Kathy mentioned. So, yes, I've been in airplanes where we have had the effects of the emissions
Well,
rising up.
now that's interesting. You would say double loading. I would look at that and go, well, who can tell what they're putting in there in the first place? How would you even measure whether somebody's double loading a lagoon?
Well, they had buildings already constructed at several other sites. I can provide those photos to you too, Mike. And those lagoons weren't ready for to be used yet, so they were piping manure over from other buildings to a few other lagoons. So basically, they were not following the rules
So
for
in a,
anaerobic.
all right. So in addition to these pits, from what I understand, and one of you can explain this, there are pits under the facilities as well, and these are the fans that are blowing out the air from those pits.
Yeah, I can take that. So what you're looking at here is the side of a hog farm or a hog confinement where they use deep pits, which these are concrete pits that are constructed below the slatted floor inside the barn. So there's no lagoons with it. And then this fan system that you see there where it's kind of jutting out from the side of the building, that's an access port to the pits underneath the barn. And those pits can be anywhere from 8 to 10 feet deep. The width of the barn, which might be 75 feet wide and let's say 500, 600 feet long. So a massive amount of storage underneath the barns, typically up to 1,000,000 gallons for each barn. And those, as the manure sits there, it's always degrading. And when feces degrades, it produces gases, and those gases, of course, stink amazing. because they include ammonia, they include hydrogen sulfide gas, they include an amazing number of volatile organic compounds, up to 150 compounds, of which our noses, our human noses, when we smell those organic gases, we know that it's from the degrading of protein, and we know that that's not healthy for us. So we have an immediate negative reaction. That's what's going on. And this propionic acid, valeric acid, these are extremely odorous compounds that we can smell in the parts per billion. And they are being exhausted through this pit fan pretty much constantly. The reason why is those gases, if they rose up through the slatted floors, because they include ammonia and hydrogen sulfide gas, they would affect the health of the pigs whose noses are basically on the floor, right? And the ammonia would give them respiratory problems. The hydrogen sulfide gas would affect their central nervous system. So the hog producer has to get those gases out of the barn, and they blow them out through these pit fans.
Wow. And
So,
Yeah,
Kathy?
and this Chris, couple comments. You know, we're talking about all these fans, and Kathy is right. They vent out the poison to the neighborhood. The fans shut off, the pigs die. You know, that's what confinement does when you put too many animals in one spot. Things happen. And the second point I want to make, since we're talking about poop, you know, the poop picture of this huge lagoon, you know, out in the environment, no cover over it, no liner under the bottom. This stuff is sitting in the air, it's seeping in the ground. And as living in rural Iowa, it is very, very, very strict for family farms and houses out here to have up to snuff septic systems where our poop is treated. You know, it goes through a process. And the confinement industry, they get away with things like this. They don't have to treat their poop. You know, and it's liquid poison is what it is, unlike what my pigs produce. You know, I use bedding and everything else. So it's a different way of raising pigs, which is more safety conscious, more acceptable to the people and the environment.
all right. And very quickly here, this is a wide shot, but this is what is inside. And those are pigs in confinement cages. And as you can see, there's no room for them to move. This is pretty much how they spend most of their lives, isn't it?
So that looks like
Yeah,
a picture of a gestation barn, Chris. So you might talk about the fact that each of those are sows, right?
Yeah. They can't move or turn around. That's how they spend their lives, in that small area. And it's a very stressful environment. Their immune system suffers for that. Needless to say, it's an inhumane way to raise it.
Yeah, and Chris sent me these photos, and they're basically taken on his table there. So if you see things around there, that these are photographs that you were taking on the table. And here's another shot, and that's about as close as we're going to get. That's about as graphic as we're going to be on this program with these. Chris, do you want to explain this a little bit?
Yeah, you know, I sent these pictures, and we can talk in a few minutes about the alternative, the way I raise pigs. But
yeah,
these are gestation crates, and the sows are pregnant. You know, it takes 3 weeks or 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days until they have their babies from the time they are bred. And they spend their lives in these crates. They can stand up, sit down, can't turn around. And the sad thing is, when they're getting ready to have pigs, they're moved to a farrowing crate where it is a little wider and the bars on the bottom are a little higher. So, but they still can't turn around. They have no bedding. They can lay down and flip to the side and have their babies and nurse their babies. So these sows spend their entire life in these crates, and we're letting these things go on, and here us real family farmers are trying to do things right. And I really put out the message: quit buying this kind of meat.
Yeah.
Bad.
And you did send me. Let's go back to the shot of you guys here, so we don't have to look at that for too much longer. And if I can track it down, I've gotten so many photos from you guys over the last few days. I know that there's one from you, Chris.
I had another question for Kathy as well, going back to those lagoons and the underground storage. Just for our listeners, what happens to all of that poop?
Okay.
It all winds up being spread, correct?
Right. So whatever doesn't evaporate, whatever doesn't leak into the groundwater, it gets pumped on a regular basis to cropland, hopefully, and sprayed and or injected into the dirt. If it's sprayed, it could be sprayed with center pivot irrigation or those big guns. Let me tell you, if they use the big guns, then you really smell that for a long distance. A lot of different states try to encourage the use of furrowing and injection to reduce that odor. But the people who live near land application fields, they're, in the spring and in the fall, they get a couple of weeks of very intense odors, and they may not live anywhere near the actual hog farm or chicken farm.
To add on to that, Kathy, we've also found research out of Pennsylvania that the closer you live to these manure application sites, the more likely you are to be colonized with methicillin-resistant staph in your bloodstream. Not have an actual infection, but actually have that. And if you become infected with a soft skin tissue infection, it's more likely to go to MRSA. And new Iowa research shows that the closer you live to these sites, you're almost 3 times as likely to be colonized with MRSA. That was done by University of Iowa School of Public Health.
All right, so we've set a background. We've given folks a background here of what a CAFO is, what a CAFO does, some of the harm it can do in an area, as we've mentioned in the past, and how I have to ask you. We talked about our friends at Sunset Lake Organic Farm. How are they doing, Karen?
I can't talk too much about that situation right now because of processes that are going on, but I can say that story is so compelling because it's farmers against farmers. The nearest neighbors are farmers, and there are times when they can't farm on their own property, take care of their own garden, take care of their own animals because of the emissions. If they leave their laundry in the dryer overnight and the wind shifts, they may open their dryer in their laundry room in the morning and be inundated with hydrogen sulfide odors that has penetrated their clothes. That's just a snapshot of some of the things that are going on there.
Yeah, and I will add that farm, it's an organic farm where CAFO was put in next door, owned by Randy. The organic farm is owned by Randy and Crystal Clare. She is already dealing with cancer, and now she has to deal with the volatile compounds that are coming out of this very toxic CAFO next door.
And those fans blow directly at their farm instead of the opposite direction where there are no residences. Those fans are actually pointing at their property. And we've got about 5,000 hogs at that site. And it's become a serious problem for them.
Oh, dear. Okay. That takes us.
Yeah, more than 2 years ago, we talked about that. That's just.
Yeah,
wow.
This is an ongoing problem. So before we break here, I want to show this photo because this leads us to the subject of our talk today. And we'll spend the next half hour dealing with this. This is the Mahomet Aquifer and Sangamon River watershed outline. And this is courtesy of the Mahomet Aquifer Consortium, as you can see. This is in east central Illinois. On the left, the squiggly line you see as a border, that's the Illinois River. and the dark area is the aquifer itself. And there is a CAFO scheduled to be. It hasn't happened yet, has it, Karen?
No, it
Okay.
has not.
So they've applied to put a CAFO on top of the aquifer, and when we come back, we're going to show you why that is such a problematic decision on their part, and why it could have really serious consequences for the water that about 500,000 people in central Illinois ingest. So it's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking to Karen Hudson, Kathy Martin, Chris Petersen. Please stick around. It gets even more interesting after the break. Soil a superpower. It's called composting. If you don't have a backyard, you need to contact Collective Resource Compost. CRC has diverted 7,000 tons of food scraps since 2010. They bring you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter from your kitchen, they swap it out and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
Time to win, our hearts all in. Let's let the fun begin. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you climbing high, I see you climbing high. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you climbing high, I see you climbing high. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive in, dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking about concentrated animal feeding operations. You know, you got to talk about it. There are issues all over the state, especially when our clean water is at risk. And as we mentioned before the break, this affects, there's a CAFO that is scheduled to be put in, and it's in Mason County. We'll be talking also about a CAFO in Fulton County. We'll be talking about one in Warren County before we let these fine people go. One of the things I want to show you, we showed, and I'm going to pop this up once again. Here's the, so you have a frame of reference. There's the map of the Mahomet Aquifer in east central Illinois, and the dark line on the right, all the way over to the right, that's the state line. And on the squiggly line on the left. So it's bordered by the Illinois River on the west and the state line with Indiana on the east. Now I want to show you something else.
And that's the watershed as well for the Sangamon
Yes,
River.
the green area, I believe, is the watershed. And there's, 14 or 15 counties that are affected by this. Now, you would think, well, you put a CAFO above even an aquifer, well, there's probably a lot of dirt between and soil strata between the pond or whatever you have and the water itself. Well, except take a look at this. This is an amazing chart. If you look to the right, that's east. The chart on the left is west, and west, you can see all the way over to the left side is the Illinois River, and you can see, as rivers do, they carve out valleys, and the valley is a place where there's very little soil between the aquifer and the surface. And you see that area where it says high recharge. And that means that a lot of water is flowing in there. I think, Kathy, I think this is your purview. So do you want to explain this a little bit?
Right. This particular hog farm is being proposed in the most shallowest part of the Mahomet Aquifer, which is basically what's illustrated there under the high recharge area. There is nothing but sand between the land surface and the Mahomet, which is also going to be sand. And so anything you put on the surface, just like if you were going to try to pour water over a bucket of sand, it's going to go straight through it, correct? So if we were land applying 1 million gallons of untreated liquid swine manure wastewater every year on the lands like this, there's nothing but the crop might utilize the nitrogen and the phosphorus, but all the other parts of swine manure wastewater that the plant doesn't use will also travel to the aquifer. So this is a problem where we tried to express in our public comments on which I think we're going to be talking about here shortly.
Yeah, and I want to show you some of the photos. These are photos that are in the area, and you go, oh yeah, so what? Standing water. But Karen, this happens all the time there because the aquifer is so close to the surface, right?
It is, and during the last severe flooding that they had, they were forced to raise that road that site will sit on by 2 feet. They had to come in and reconstruct the road. So does common sense tell you this is not a good place to put this? There are already thousands of hogs in this county, but this facility, it's time to say, let's take a look at this. And the FSA is looking at a loan for this operation. That's the Farm Services Agency. And because of the opposition to this project, they are asking for an environmental assessment, and we weighed in with comments on this, and Kathy helped quite a bit, and we submitted about 34 pages of comments from just the citizens group alone, in addition to individual comments from people all over the community. It's a problem. It's going to be a problem. When the aquifer gets to a certain height there, the irrigation wells that they use for the vegetables and other crops in the area actually have aquifer water squirting out of their irrigation pipes. That's how much pressure is coming up from the aquifer when it reaches a high level.
Yeah, photo. You can see here, photo after photo. You have minor rains, and the water sits on top, which tells you how close to the surface the aquifer is. And let's take a look at a map here. If you look in the upper left area, at that little grid, the little patchwork of lines there, that is the town of Peterville. And now I assume the big circle in the center, is that where the CAFO is scheduled to be sited?
Right where, I believe it's right where that arrow is pointing, kind of near there, but it's too close to this town. This town was incorporated in the 1800s, and it's too close.
All right. Why is it too close?
Well, there's supposed to be a setback from a populated area, and there are more than 10 homes in the Peterville area, many more than 10 homes, and we feel that that's a wrong application that has incorrect information on it, and it should never have been approved in the first place. That's just one of the issues. When we see these applications come through for these facilities, we go through them with a fine-tooth comb with the individuals in these communities, and we find error after error. The nearest home that's inhabited wasn't even counted as a home. The nearest well was missed. We find so many errors, egregious errors. These are put together by engineers, and we go after these are submitted and find these errors.
And you mentioned to me when we were talking the other day that some of the agencies, I don't know exactly which, didn't even mention the town of Peterville. You guys mentioned it, what, like 50 times in your documents, and they didn't mention it once. Which agency did not? Which agency failed to mention Peterville? Go ahead.
Take it.
Yeah, Kathy.
So the U.S. EPA Region 5 was asked to weigh in on the Farm Services Agency environmental assessment because the Mahomet Aquifer is a sole source aquifer, which is a very special federal designation. It's supposed to be protected much more elaborately than just regular aquifers. So the U.S. EPA wrote a 5-page letter to the Farm Services Agency listing pages of recommendations. 5 pages of recommendations. And not once was the name of the town Peterville mentioned. Not once was it mentioned that there are actually almost 50 people that are going to be drinking that shallow Mahomet Aquifer. And when the Farm Service Agency incorporated those recommendations into their final environmental assessment and the determination, it's called a FONSI, finding of no significant impact, never once did they mention the town of Peterville and all of those people that will be drinking the water. And we find that absolutely unacceptable.
Okay, and this is, we're living in bizarro world here, because it was just 2015 that the Mahomet Aquifer was designated as a sole source aquifer, and the EPA defines a sole source aquifer as one where the aquifer supplies at least 50% of the drinking water for its service area, and there are no reasonably available alternative drinking water sources should the aquifer become contaminated. And this is what we're talking about, the possibility that it would be contaminated. Let me also add that, and let me find this here. Yes, just in this year, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed SB 2515, creating the Mahomet Aquifer Council. I'm sorry, I think that was in 2018. Its purpose is to help protect... 2018. But that's on top of the EPA's Mahomet Aquifer Protection Task Force. So if we've got these task force and it's been declared sole source aquifer, why are you not being protected by the agencies that should be protecting you?
That's the best question. And we sent a 34-page scathing review of the EPA's recommendations, mainly because 90% of the recommendations basically said, oh, just follow state law, that'll protect the groundwater. But we're not just asking, this isn't just a hog farm over groundwater that might be 200 feet below surface with intervening layers of clay or shale or what have you that would hope to protect the aquifer. This is sand over sand. And so we were expecting something a little bit more robust. Well, about 10% of the recommendations were a little bit robust, asking for things that go beyond state law. However, none of those particular recommendations were tied to a legally enforceable document. And we all know that the only way you're going to get somebody to do something is make them do it through a permit that could be enforced, that could have violations, that could have some sort of legal action, and that was not included in the EPA's recommendations. Therefore, it's basically meaningless, right? And then some of their suggested recommendations were just basically not realistic at all, that just wouldn't happen, even though they're nice ideas. So what we were very disappointed in was that here's a sole source aquifer, which, by the way, the listening audience needs to know, it takes a long time to propose a particular aquifer to be categorized as sole source aquifer. There are studies that are done. It's not something that happens overnight. So the state of Illinois went through a lot of effort to get this designation. And what the general public expects in return is some sort of additional protection. So what we're seeing here in a snapshot is there is no additional protection. There is no legally enforcement document. So what happens in the rest of the Mahomet Aquifer, which stretches across the state, every time that there's something built? How is that generates, maybe a liquid waste pollution? How is this aquifer actually being protected, and who's doing the protecting? In our case, we say no one, except the public, who is banging on the door saying, why aren't you doing your job? Okay.
Yeah. And I want to get to some of the agencies involved. Okay,
and if we can back up just a second, and maybe we're going to get to this, but the discussion that we've had, or what we've talked about a few times, that the state of Illinois doesn't even necessarily know where all these CAFOs are. So that makes it even harder to regulate.
Well, yeah, but we'll get to that in a second. While we're here on the subject of the FSA, and so folks might not know what that is. The CAFO applied for a beginner farmer loan through the USDA Direct and Guaranteed Farm Service Agency, or FSA, loan program. Now, they want to construct a 2,400 head swine CAFO. The FSA must consider the potential impact on local water sources and ecology with an environmental review. And this has to be in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, which was passed by Nixon in 1970, the National Historic Preservation Act, the NHPA, and the Endangered Species Act. Is there any indication that these are being followed?
Well, we have concerns. There's a threatened species there called the chorus frog. It's not. It's been on the list to be determined to be an endangered species, but this chorus frog emerges in the last few weeks of February through the first several weeks of March. And there's been other projects in that county that have been mitigated due to the presence of the chorus frog. And you have to actually go out during that time of year to actually know exactly where they're at. And we, the county board person in Mason County that we are working with, filed for what's called an EchoCat study. It's a more in-depth study of this threatened species. And that has not been determined yet. And we feel that things need to slow down on this entire FSA loan, because the more we look at it, the more problems we are finding for protocol that was followed, as well as things that they overlooked on their determination.
And you can see in this map, this is where the chorus frog habitats are located in Mason County, some very near where the proposed CAFO is, and obviously putting hog manure into their habitat is probably not a great idea. Kathy, were you going to jump in with something?
Right. So a lot of these photos that are images that you're showing came from our public comments, so that people in the audience know this is what we submitted to the Farm Services Agency. We were very detailed in pointing out these issues, and all of our concerns were basically ignored.
All right. Let's that is that situation. So that's Mason County. All right. We also have a situation right over the Illinois River in Fulton County, and that's and I think you guys might appreciate it if I can find this really quickly. What I called it on my blog post was Twin CAFOs for Twin Brothers, and it sounds like the title of a really bad sitcom, but this is not funny business at all. It's twin brothers who are putting up dueling CAFOs on the same property, but they're getting away with it because they're calling them separate, even though basically it's going to be the same operation. How is it that they can get away with that, Karen?
You know, Mike, you said today was Halloween. That's one of the tricks or loopholes in the Illinois law.
Yeah,
I've got a whole bag of tricks here. I wish we had about 4 hours, but what they have done in so many situations in the state is they can put up more than one operation adjoining each other if there's a different name on each barn. Now, there's going to be almost 5,000 hogs there. Each building is housing under 2,500 hogs. And in Illinois, by the Livestock Management Facilities Act, if a facility is over 2,500 55-pound or over hogs, an automatic or a public hearing can take place at the county board level. It's all non-binding, yet the public still gets to weigh in and ask questions about the impacts of the facility. So they come in right under the threshold, there's no public hearing, and then they can double them up or even triple them up. Once those are in, those facilities can expand every 2 years up to 50% of their fixed capital costs. So once there's a foot in the door, they can expand as big as it wants.
Yeah, well, that's part of the Livestock Management Facilities Act in the state of Illinois, a very, very flawed law, which is now more than 20 years old, needs to be desperately reworked. Chris Petersen, does this happen in other states, or is this peculiar to Illinois?
Well, for the audience, the broader view, this is going on across the United States. In the ag states, even some non-ag states per se, they put hog confinements up in the middle of the desert in Utah for various reasons. We could spend 4 hours on that one too. But I'm going to use Iowa as an example, and I'll be real brief here. I'm going to throw out some numbers to make people think. Growth in Iowa is a free-for-all. Permitting, oversight, regulation, operation practices are not overseen as they should be. Once the CAFO is built, the state, the EPC, Environmental Commission, or the county health departments can't even get inside of these confinements to count the pigs and see if they're within regulatory compliance.
And Chris, I'm showing a map of Iowa. Look at the number of facilities in the state of Iowa. How many are there?
Thousands. The Des Moines Register a few years ago found 600 that weren't even on this map. And this map is 4 years old. So, add 30% more because this growth is crazy. It's totally out of hand right now. And the reason is our government, which is supposed to watch out for the citizens, whether rural or urban or whatever, is not doing their job. As an example, 99% of the permits in Iowa are approved for these things. And if it only takes a 50% passing grade, and if you flunk, state government, the DNR and the EPC will help the entity get enough points to pass, achieve that 50%. So this is going on in Iowa, and out of all this, Iowa is 49th, 50th, the discussion is there. We're at the bottom in water quality, and this has all happened thanks to the industry and our government, our elected officials. 90% plus of the independent traditional pig farmers have been ran out of business, either quit or went bankruptcy or just quit raising pigs. And this has to change with the thought of neighborhoods, human health, the antibiotics issues, the animal welfare issues. I wouldn't think of treating a pig the way they do. And I guess my thought is, help us save the family farm. Help us do agriculture right. We were good enough to feed this country for hundreds of years until this industry come along a few decades ago.
You bring up some really good points, and one of them alludes to what Peggy brought up earlier. One thing you said, Chris, is that the Department of Agriculture in Iowa pretty much approves everything. As far as we know in Illinois, Karen, you're the one who told me this. The Department of Agriculture in Illinois has never turned down a CAFO. At least you can't find any example of that or instance.
Right. To the best of their knowledge, they may withdraw if there's a problem, but no one has never been turned down, to the best of our knowledge. And getting back to what Peggy talked about where these facilities are, the National Resources Defense Council put out a report in 2019. They looked at all the CAFOs they could find nationwide, and out of the 17,000 that they think are there, they have such a lack of data for more than about 17,000 unaccounted for. About half of those were unaccounted for. And now we have that problem in Illinois, in Iowa. In Illinois, the Illinois Coalition for Clean Air and Water, we filed a de-delegation petition, which gives us right as citizens under the Clean Water Act to force the Illinois EPA to enforce the Clean Water Act. We appealed that to the federal EPA in 2008. 2 years went by, and the federal EPA gave Illinois EPA a failing grade because they are not permitting these facilities properly. There's no complete inventory of where these are at, and they're basically sitting on their hands. I know that they've had quite a few people retire without being replaced, so they have a problem with personnel issues there. What's the problem? People are there. There's less people at the EPA to look at these facilities, and more of these facilities are going in every month, every week, every year.
And that's the difference between the U.S. EPA and the Illinois EPA too. These are two different departments, and they behave differently. The
federal EPA gave them a work plan, and that work plan is still not finished, and it's been since 2011.
All right.
Or so.
All right.
Wow. Yeah.
I want to get to some remedies for this real quick, but just before we do, give me like 1 minute, Karen, about the twin guys who twin CAFOs for twin brothers. They set up shop in another county, but you guys did a FOIA on them, Freedom of Information Act, and you discovered some really weird things about their operation in Warren County. What did you find?
Yeah, the group that we're working with in Fulton County, the concerned citizens of Fulton County, did some FOIAing. We assisted them, and there's two buildings there, just like they plan to put in Fulton County. And we looked at the health department FOIA, and there's no septic system for the workers. And yet we have reports that there are showers there and there are washing machines there. Where is this waste from humans being taken, the humans that work at this site? When I spoke with Illinois EPA, the side comment is, we know where they're putting the waste. It's going into the pits. When I talked to Chris Petersen in Iowa, he said, Karen, it's not just Illinois' problem. That's happening elsewhere too. So they wanted to look at the track record of this operation in the other county, which is nearby. Prairie City is the closest municipality to these twin barns, and the odor issues are terrible for that. Now they are thinking of even putting one or two on the other side of Prairie City in McDonough County. So
unbelievable. So Chris, you've seen this before too.
Yeah, like I said, it's a free for all. And 5-6 years ago, two of us, Diane Rosenberg and I, we co-founded the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture, and it's a group of groups, and it's an alliance. We have approximately 35 groups from across the state organized, and we are fighting against this industry. And our main intent, our main purpose right now is to get a building moratorium on factory farms. We need to stop the polluting. We need to stop the bleeding of family farms. And we gain more and more support down in the Iowa State House every year. So it's going to happen sooner or later. And the industry, pretty nervous about a lot of these things.
It doesn't seem like it. They seem like, if you read Danielle Diamond, who used to be part of SRAP, and she did a report that I reference in my
She's
blog.
been on the show a couple times.
Right, and she talks about the
had Danielle on.
bullying tactics of these. I mean, hog heads found on front porches, that kind of thing. I mean, it sounds like The Godfather.
Well, they want to get them all in before Armageddon, before they can't build them anymore. That's the purpose of all this building boom,
Mike-
bullying, everything else.
In December, we're having a special webinar called SRAP Live, and I'm going to be moderating a panel of people who have experienced these roadblocks, bullying, threats, that type of thing on my panel discussion. And we'll be giving you more information about that. That's December 2nd and 3rd. But getting back to the Warren County, guess what? New septic system has been applied for after it was revealed that there was no septic system there since 2015.
Well, yeah. Well, it means they're going to get off with it because they'll put in the septic system and they'll say, "Hey, we've got a septic system now." So, I mean, what about the 5 years, 6 years when they didn't have it? There are no fines for that. There's nothing. All right, we're out of time, but we need to go through this very quickly. I'll tack on a couple of minutes. We'll blow past our break time and go into the next hour real quick, though. These are some suggestions that you have for stopping hog CAFOs and other CAFOs, because it's not just hogs, it's chickens, it's cattle. But the big ones in Illinois and Iowa and a lot of North Carolina are hog farms.
Wisconsin.
Yep. All right. And you suggest these recommendations: require all concentrated animal feeding operations to register with the Illinois EPA, so the agency actually has an accurate location database maintained. That just blows me away. They don't even have to register with the IEPA? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness.
They want to be called a legitimate business, but that's not legitimate to me.
Okay. Second, require all large CAFOs to obtain operating permits from the EPA to prevent pollution. The top of my head is coming off right now. Next, close the expansion loophole under Illinois Livestock Facility Siting. By the way, the Livestock Management Facility Act needs to be. You guys have got to get to Governor Pritzker, that the IDOA, the Illinois Department of Agriculture, that law is a catastrophe. It is a catastrophe in Illinois. And this is an action item. If you want folks watching this, you write to Governor Pritzker and say the LMFA needs to be redone. It needs to be refigured, rethought. Anyway, under that, you can start a small CAFO and then start adding animals in the future without any, nobody cares. You just bring in as many. So you get it under the wire, and then you just start add to the CAFO. Allow county boards to convene meaningful hearings and issue binding recommendations to the IDOA on the siting and construction of new large-scale livestock confinement operations. This is to say, our county boards have no power. Cities have no power. Villages and towns have no power. They can do recommendations. Right. No standing at all. And the IDOA goes, that's nice. We're going to put in the CAFO anyway. And as we said earlier, the IDOA has never seen a CAFO it didn't like. Give adjoining landowners, neighbors, and other citizens to propose new and expanding large-scale livestock confinement operations the legal standing to call for automatic public hearings on applications and the right to appeal poor siting decisions by the IDOA, create setbacks from existing surface waters and increase setbacks from homes and towns for large facilities, require all livestock facilities to submit waste management plans. Dear God, they don't even have to submit a waste management plan with spill control and a prevention to be approved by IDOA prior to siting, and construction approvals, and mandate that those plans be subject to public review and comment as part of the application process. You just listen to those demands and what we do not have in Illinois, and Chris, I suspect in Iowa to a great degree, but in Illinois, it's worse than in some of our neighboring states.
Yeah, Iowa and Illinois are sister states in this issue, pretty much.
Yeah. All right.
This is my brother and I. So, yeah, they have to have waste management plans after they reach a certain size. And a smaller operation, after 90 days, it will show a plan. We want to see these plans ahead of time. ICCW compared ourselves to other states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Iowa, and we've won the race to the bottom. And I sent you that chart, Mike. These other states have some regulation at the county level, some kind of zoning. They require nutrient plans, permits for expansions, which we don't, and construction and operating permits. And they also require permits for smaller operations under 1,000 animal units. You see all these boxes checked by those other states, even though Iowa is drowning in hog waste. Look at Illinois. None of those boxes are checked. So we say we've won the race to the bottom, and I'm not proud to say that. I want to get that changed.
Okay, and we do too. Karen Hudson, Kathy Martin, Chris Petersen, always great to have you on. I'm sorry it's under such dire circumstances, but good for you for doing the hard work and keeping up the fight. Chris, I wanted to show the photo that you sent me of the hogs suckling at the at Mom, and I can't find it. I have no idea where it went. It just sort of disappeared. But that is I wanted to end with that and say this is what we're trying to get to, and perhaps we will. So you guys keep us posted. We will follow up again. Thank you all for spending your Sunday morning with us. We really appreciate it. Okay, I love the salutes. Okay, it's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Peggy and I will talk about a few things when we come back. We hope you stick around.
It's difficult to imagine anything more powerful than a severe storm. They can come upon us and have a devastating impact on our trees and homes. Heavy winds can uproot entire trees of any size, especially when the soil has become saturated by abundant rain. They can also cause very large branches to snap and fall. Lightning strikes, wind, snow, and ice, all these things can put a valued tree at risk and even compromise the safety of your property. Mother Nature is unpredictable. The best thing you can do is to be prepared. Bartlett Tree Experts is here to help. Our arborist representatives are experts in pre-storm strategies that can reduce the likelihood of storm damage to your trees. When they visit your property, they will inspect, assess, and recommend an appropriate course of action. Pruning can remove dangerous dead branches or target heavy limbs that may pose a threat in high winds. Structural support systems such as high-strength cable or bracing rods can make it less likely to fail. Lightning protection systems can protect high-value, susceptible, or mature trees and safely conduct strikes to the ground. And based on the location of the tree and its proximity to walkways or structures, Bartlett Tree Experts can also provide safe removal of trees that pose a high risk of failure. Now, when a storm does hit, we can work long and hard to help remediate tree damage. If our clients' trees and properties are impacted, we understand their needs may be pressing. We meet this urgency by mobilizing our crews immediately upon the passing of the storm. And because we operate in many areas, we are able to bring these teams in quickly from other parts of the country not impacted by severe weather, and we begin working as soon as conditions allow. Once emergency services are complete, we begin the process of cleanup and repair on other storm-damaged trees and shrubs. Even if your trees seem unharmed, it's a good idea to have one of our arborists perform a more detailed inspection. Sometimes critical damage to a tree can possibly go unnoticed to an untrained eye. So remember, before the storm and after, Bartlett Tree Experts is here to help.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rooted bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all that I can take. Give me stuff that I can break.
Oh, pull the mic down. Hello. And there we are. Good morning and welcome to the show, to the second part of our show. Oh, wait, I'm knocking things around here. Wait, let's, Frank.
What have you done with our show's host? Where did Mike Nowak go?
Wait, let me bring my bat here, my good friend. Welcome to my bat. Say hello. Hello, bat. Whoa.
Hello, Bat.
Hello, bat. I can't find the center of this. Here.
Hello,
everybody, bring out your capes, your Halloween capes, and let your hair down.
I brought my owl. That's all. I brought my owl.
Oh, it doesn't count. Okay. All right, let's put.
I can't hear you down. Yes, it's Mike.
Do this.
What?
All right, I thought I would scare people with my with my
yeah,
cape.
I don't know if you've done the long hair. I don't know if you've had your hair down on the show yet.
Nope, I haven't. I am letting my hair down on our show. Okay. Ooh. Wait a second.
All
wait
right,
a second.
Before we lose our audience.
What? No, this is going to bring them back. Okay, here we are.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Okay, I've got the other one
Yeah.
too.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! Oh, in the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
All those years ago and predicted the show. Here you go.
Here we are. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do for the kiddies if they come by today.
Okay.
We'll see if it works. Where's your
Did
cape?
Legata
What?
Did Legata take off when she saw the cape?
She was gone long ago. She's like, I'm not going to deal with this. You know, I'm going to have to get this cut at some point, or not.
Why?
I don't know. What?
Why?
Okay. And I just remembered to turn on the chat. I haven't had it on, so I have no idea whether anybody's saying anything at all.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of conversation going back and forth.
Good, because I don't have any of it here. So there we go. We should probably start with the wrap up to last week's show. We mentioned it at the top of the program, and as we know, the Bell Bowl Prairie has been spared till March 1st.
For now.
Yeah. Woohoo! Woohoo!
And there's been some interesting discussion on the Save Bell Bowl Prairie list too, about being out there tomorrow when bulldozers were scheduled to be there.
Because
just to make sure there's been no miscommunication.
That's wow. See, here's the thing, and Carrie Lee's been on our show a couple of times, who is the executive director of the Natural Land Institute. Had a news conference the other day, and she's been interviewed in various places, and the story. Patty Wetley's been great on this at WTTW in writing.
And Cheryl DeVore on the Chicago Tribune.
Yeah, but and good for Cheryl DeVore to finally get the Tribune involved in this, but they came late to the party. But TTW's been on top of this from the very beginning. And I love Cheryl. She does great work. But in the article that came out, I guess, yesterday in TTW or Friday, there are some things that are really revealing that about what's going on. Carrie Lee said, and the question, Patty Wetley writes, the question on the mind of a lot of people throughout the campaign to save Bell Bowl Prairie has been, how did things come to this? How is it that no one was aware the prairie was in jeopardy until August when bulldozers were at the gate? And Lee says, our feeling is that we were actively misled. We do feel that we were blindsided. And the Natural Land Institute, you have to know, has been a long-time steward. You'd think you'd let the stewards know that, hey, we're going to bulldoze this come November 1st. And volunteers were on site in July for a scheduled workday. No one from the airport ever said a word about the cargo expansion.
And it wasn't even supposed to November 1st. It was because the bee was spotted.
Right.
It was going to happen sooner.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And if the rusty patch bumblebee, whoever found that should get a medal, because that's the only thing that saved the prairie. And as Carrie Lee goes on to say, that the regulatory environment that we have is no longer functioning to respond in the way that it needs to, because agencies like the Federal Aviation Authority, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Illinois Department of Transportation, and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, as well as local government officials, were all participating in or being kept abreast of environmental assessments being conducted on the site in advance of the expansion as far back as 2018, but not the environmentalists, not the people who are actually taking care of the prairie. Now, if we go back to the story we just did, which is looking at the CAFOs in Illinois, and the idea that the IEPA, the EPA, the IDOA, the government agencies are all they're all lined up, it seems, like on the side of the industry at the expense of citizens. The very agencies that are, you look at all of these agencies, the very agencies that are supposed to protect us are the ones working to destroy our environment. Okay, can we put it that way? That they don't care. And I will draw a line, another straight line, to places like the city of Chicago. The idea that there is no transparency, and when you have no transparency, these things happen. These bad things.
Look at the streetlight replacement. Same thing.
Yep. So it's just stunning. So now the demands being made by the Natural Land Institute and others is, we want a seat at the table. But guess what? The airport authority is not saying that at all. I can see what's going to happen here. They're going to move on. They're going to say, well, we made some more decisions. It's going to be a fiat here. They're going to say, yeah, well, whatever they decide. They're going to save that little stretch, instead. Yeah. And my buddy, our buddy now from the show, a friend of the show, Domenico D'Alessandro, wrote to me the other day to say, I'm afraid that they're not going to think expansively, and creatively, and make something really wonderful, which is now a possibility. Hey, I said that about Lincoln Yards in Chicago. There was an opportunity in Chicago to create an urban natural area, and what did they opt for? Concrete and steel, because the contracts were signed and they were ready to go, and the hell with the rest of you.
We went to those public hearings, and
boy, that was a done deal from the beginning.
Heard what people said.
Yeah, we were there. We covered that, and you could tell. You just know that the back room had lots of smoke. Maybe not smoke anymore. Who knows what's in the back room nowadays? Now that the cigars and cigarettes are banned.
And you got to look at what Bell Bowl, what the airport sort of agreed to, but they're still not talking. It's just at this point they haven't said they're not putting the road in.
No, that's the idea. The lack of transparency continues. Yeah. So
taking out a detention pond. That's all they agreed to so far, from what I've read.
We do not know what they're going to do. Nobody knows what they're going to do. This is creepy. This is disgusting. Actually, it's pathetic. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So the good news being that these organizations now have their eyes open. Now they're waiting for you. They know that you're going to try something little tricky.
What else is waiting in the wings? What haven't they seen yet?
Yeah.
What don't we know about yet?
So if they're not at the table, we'll know soon enough, because they're going to have discussions long before March 1st. And we'll find out. And that's, maybe when the big boys need to step in. I mean, it was interesting that none of the politicians played a role unless they did behind the scenes. You didn't hear anybody, none of the, not the governor, not our senators. Tammy Duckworth was like nowhere to be seen in this. Dick Durbin was like, "Ooh, please don't get me involved."
The only thing I saw from somebody posted something from Durbin's office, not from him, from his office, saying this was private funding and not the federal funding. That's the only thing I saw from Durbin's office.
Just remarkable. Just remarkable. Okay, enough of that, because I'll get myself in trouble here.
I posted the link, but go to savebellbowlprairie.org, and that's all the links to join the Facebook group and keep up with it if you're not on the list already.
Yeah.
Savebellbowlprairie.org.
Okay. We promised various groups that we would tell our viewers about their smashes going on in the pumpkin smashes going on in the air, and I need to track it down, but we've got a bunch of them. Do you have a list in front of you?
Yeah, so I've got some of them. Here is Kane County Recycling Coordinator Jennifer Jarlin sent in and squash recycling events Saturday 11/6. So a lot of these are next weekend. Kane County, in conjunction with Pushing the Envelope Farm and Northern Illinois Food Bank, has free pumpkin recycling in Geneva on Saturday, November 6th from 9 to 12. They'll take pumpkins, carved or whole, decorative squash and gourds, corn stalks, hay bales, and any other organic materials for recycling. Elgin and St. Charles are also holding pumpkin composting events.
Yep. And our friend Sarah Batka from Illinois Extension, of course, sent us information about, and these are all taking place on November 6th, most of them in the morning. So, for instance, the ones in Chicago are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the pumpkins, and the idea is bring your pumpkin, bring your jack-o'-lantern. If you don't, please don't throw it in the garbage, because they're big and they can be recycled. They can be composted. I actually, I did a really dumb thing. I carved a pumpkin, and then I brought it in, and we were having a fruit fly issue here in the house. So I put it in a sack because I didn't want the fruit flies to get to it. And then I forgot it was there, and then I pulled it out, and it was nasty. And so it was
composting itself.
It was composting. It's already in my compost pile, so I put that one in the compost pile. So you don't get to see my carved pumpkin. Although I took a photo. I should have sent myself a photo to post it here. Anyway, in Chicago, Plant Chicago is having a smash next week. They're at 4459 South Marshfield Avenue. Gary Comer Youth Center, 7200 South Ingleside Avenue. Chicago Vocational Academy High School, we've been there, at 2100 East 87th. Lakeview High School, 4015 North Ashland. And Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences, 3857 West 11th. And they, on the flyer here, what is a pumpkin smash? Well, it's a community effort to keep pumpkins out of our landfills. And you just bring your pumpkin. And, of course, I miss... and I wanted to mention this, and we'll see again today the information, the commercial about the Green Living Expo up at McHenry County College. They had bowling for pumpkins. It was
bowling for pumpkins.
I mean, they had pins set up, and you could bowl your pumpkin and knock over pins.
If you go to our Facebook page, you can find that video. It's up there.
It's yeah.
Review bowling.
Have people search through that through 4 or 5 years ago. Who cares?
Well, I was going to say, if you go to scarce.org/pumpkins, they have a list of all the registered sites for the pumpkin smash. I put the link up.
All of them, including
Yep, there's a map you can search by zip code. So if people registered the event,
okay, because
for pumpkin smash,
right? Because there's also one in Edgewater that I'm surprised that it's probably not associated with extension. And let me where is that?
Well,
here?
It's I'm looking at it here. Unfortunately, that link doesn't work. But Edgewater one is.
I'm trying to find the Edgewater.
I've got it, but I'm trying to get it open.
Yeah, me too. And I'm opening the PNG, but it's not opening. There it is. No, that's
It's going to be from noon to 4 in the parking lot at 6040 North Clark Street, north of the fire station.
All right, great. Good.
And of course, all of these are following COVID guidelines. So
the Edgewater folks are doing a good. And my friend Nina Newhauser up there, the Edgewater Environmental Coalition, an all-volunteer group and partner of the Overhead Project, which is a nonprofit group. So they I've got their pumpkin smash too. Something else that came across.
Do I get to do my little quick plug while you're doing that?
Go.
New, hot off the press, number issue, Natural Awakenings Chicago. Go to nahchicago.com. Speaking of Cheryl DeVore, she has a great article discovering nature in November and all sorts of November hikes. So you can find that in here. Not a good thing to show online up here because it's not showing too well. And we've got a whole article Carrie Jackson wrote on net zero buildings, creating sustainable communities, including an interview with Tom Bassett-Dilley, who we've had on this show as well.
Yep.
He just won a big award at Limelight from the Illinois Green, which is part of the U.S. Green Building Council.
Yep. What they call Green Illinois or something like that now, whatever.
Illinois Green.
Illinois Green.
Okay. Yeah, and talk about the net zero edition at the Stevenson High School as well in the article. So nahchicago.com. There is my plug.
Oh, get one more article. What else is in there? There's got to be something about a good food article that you've got in there.
Some great recipes. We have some wonderful plant-based recipes as it gets cold this week, as we'll hear from Dr. Rick. We have plant-based soup recipes for chilly days, like quick and easy lentil soup.
And
an article about Midwest electric vehicle recharging stations.
Oh, and by the way, Wilco Green says Will County will be catapulting pumpkins with Lewis University Saturday, November 6th, 9 to noon.
Speaking of Rick?
And what do you mean, speaking of Rick?
Or National Lewis, I guess. Never mind. And the Naperville Pumpkin Smash, somebody posted November 6th, 9 a.m. to noon.
Jan did that. Thank you, Jan. So if you got any other pumpkin smashes here, do let us know, and we'll get the word out. All right. Before we break, something very interesting came across my desk this week, and that is the potential signs of hope for the western monarch butterfly. This is interesting. Migratory western monarchs are being reported at their overwintering sites in coastal California in greater numbers than last year, which is not saying much because they were almost down to nothing last year.
Yeah.
With hundreds at some sites and thousands at others, giving hope for the struggling populations. What did I do with Dracula? Doesn't have to wear glasses, but I do.
Oh, there you are.
Where did he go? He's back. These reports are particularly welcome after the population reached an all-time low, of 1,944 1914 butterflies last year. 1914. This year's official count, has not yet begun. That will take place with the help of more than 100 community scientists during the 25th annual Western Monarch Thanksgiving count, beginning November 13th. Xerces, this is in the Xerces Society report, yet these early signs signal the possibility of a rebound in numbers, at least compared to last year's historic low. On October 16th of this year, more than 1,300 monarchs were counted at the Pacific Grove overwintering site. This site did not have a single monarch butterfly during last year's count. Pismo State Beach Monarch Butterfly Grove and an adjacent site tallied roughly 8,000 monarchs on October 20th. Last year, these sites hosted less than 300. Additional smaller estimates and observations from volunteers and the public have started to pour in from the Bay Area and Santa Cruz, Monterey, Big Sur, Ventura, Los Angeles, and elsewhere, with numbers ranging from a few to dozens to hundreds of monarchs. Altogether, there appear to be over 10,000 monarchs easily accounted for at the overwintering sites. So that's a really, really, really good sign. And it makes me wonder, and maybe this is something, well, Rick wouldn't know, but it makes me wonder, with the rains, the crazy winds and rains they had there in the last week or so, how that affected the monarchs. You know, if they're hunkered down, can they hang on to those trees during all of that? I have no idea. Okay. We need to get
We
to...
should have somebody on from the Xerces Society soon.
I think that would be a good, idea.
A good idea.
I cannot hear myself through this. Okay, let's bring in meteorologist Rick DiMaio. He will be
Wait,
next.
don't we have a spot break? Yes.
Yes, we bring him in after the spot break, which comes up right now. Please stick around.
You can help slow climate change in 2021 by composting. And you don't even need a backyard. By composting communally in multi-unit buildings across Chicagoland, Collective Resource Compost has diverted 7,000 tons of food scrap since 2010. CRC brings you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter, they swap it out, and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
The pandemic has tested all of us as we've learned to live, work, and interact differently.
Whether or not you've gotten sick, we must strengthen our immunity and our resolve to defeat COVID.
The COVID vaccines offer a safe and effective way to keep you, your family, and your colleagues safe.
So please, ask the questions.
Follow the science.
Get vaccinated.
So that's it? I thought there was more. I was hoping there would be one more because
I thought that was our Halloween reintro.
It was dark. And then, I nearly pulled the mixer off. I tried to walk away with my headsets on. That did not happen. That was not a good idea.
That didn't work.
It pulled the mixer off of its platform there. Okay. See, I was trying to get some stuff loaded, and there's wait, I have to load you into the thing because of your issues earlier. Let me pop your picture in there. There we go. So we can pop that up, and now we can bring in this, and let me make sure that Rick's mic is on. It is. Welcome. Good morning, meteorologist Rick DiMaio.
Good morning, Count Micula.
Thank you. I like that. Count Micula. Yeah. Wait, we should play this for Rick too, because he'll appreciate it.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Nobody like Gene Wilder. I got that one of the best movies ever of all time, Young Frankenstein. Yeah, Mel Brooks did some really weird stuff, but he had like two in a row that were two of the best movies of all time. Which Young Frankenstein and
Blazing Saddles.
And Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles most likely cannot be either made today or shown today in a theater near you.
No, it's tough. That's
I think one of my favorite lines in Young Frankenstein is after he comes up and bangs on the door. He goes, "What knockers?" And Terry Garr goes, "Oh, thank you, doctor." It's just one thing after another where they're not telling you the joke. Is you have to figure out the joke, and if you got it, then your mind is as perverted as his. Right? That's basically how that works.
Well, that's a pretty simple one. That's a cheap one there. Okay, so
yeah, but you know what? But they all work.
Igor, not Igor.
Right.
Yeah. And wasn't that hump on the left side the last time? And he goes, not only does he say it was on the right side, he goes, "What hump?"
Well, what hump? One of the best. I say that all the time when I'm driving down the streets, and you miss the hump that catches your car. It's
right.
And you go, "What hump?"
Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Anyway, wow. I'm still loading pictures from you. I've just about got them done here, and
while you're loading them, Peg, go ahead and pull up a link I just sent you. It's a webcam from Glasgow, Scotland, where the UN Climate Summit is currently taking place. It's not of the summit itself, but it's of Glasgow.
Yeah, windy is forecasted. Is that the
link? Windy.com does. I think it should come up with the link, right? To Glasgow, Scotland.
Yeah, I'm seeing an image. Wow, looks like a storm right over Glasgow.
Right, but
did you
go to the?
Did you send the link to me too? Because I might be able to pop that up.
Yeah, I did.
All right,
and it shows a lot of people on the square. It looks like they're beginning some sort of protest or talk or whatever. Yeah. But it definitely looks like that they're prepared to talk to anybody who wants to listen to them. But as Mother Nature likes to do things, there's a big storm, as Peggy you were alluding to, literally like right over all of the United Kingdom. Yeah. And I'm really upset that Queen Elizabeth didn't show up, guys. Aren't you?
No, not really. No.
Queen Elizabeth, you didn't want to see the wave.
The what? Oh, it won't let me pop the URL in there. That's just not good. All right. What? Okay. Yeah, I get you. It's not letting me copy this, that doesn't make any sense at all. This because usually. Oh well. This is what we're dealing.
That's 3 wells. That means we move on.
I think so. I think we're at that.
That's
point.
A deep subject. Well. Deep subject.
Okay. Thank you, Peggy.
There you go.
That was very good, Peggy.
And it's Frankenstein, not Frankenstein.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Let me pop up something while I'm
Amos has jumped on to Count Micula, by the way.
Count Micula. I kind of like that. I think we got to keep this. I want to show you this
Count
from
Micula.
Count Micula. Show you this from my yard. This is for the entire week. I left it up there after the first rain. So we're like at 4 and 2/10. It's probably a little more than that. I think we had a little extra before I started actually keeping track of this, but at least 4 and 2/10 inches of rain in my backyard this week.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is the nights are longer, the days are cooler, there's less evaporation. So notice how things have gotten so green in the last month.
Yeah. And things are still green, even though we're getting some colors now. We got some from our guest Karen Hudson, who is in Michigan right now, and she went out on her birthday yesterday, and they were looking. It was sunny and beautiful in certain places, or maybe it was the day before.
Yeah, what part of Michigan? That's a big.
Yeah, western part.
Southwest.
She's
Southwest.
Well, kind of western. Actually, she's more in the Manistee area. So she had some beautiful.
A little further north.
Yeah.
North of Muskegon.
Yeah. So let's start. I don't have. Okay. I know what we can start with, because this is very cool that you sent us, and it is how the length of the growing season has increased over most of the U.S. That's a very interesting map. Maybe you can go for
and this is data from Mark Carroll, who is a meteorologist now working with the WGN group. But Mark Carroll was a longtime partner with Tom Piazza at Weather Command. They were part of a group of, and still part of a group of meteorologists who forecast out up near, I believe it's somewhere in Pewaukee or Wheeling, near Pewaukee Airport. Anyway, Mark left that team and is now with the Skilling team, and he does some really great climate analysis, because sometimes if you just talk about the normal numbers all the time, rain, snow, drought, things like that, it really doesn't have much of an impact unless you look at the trends of climate and also how to put it into perspective from a standpoint of impacts. So clearly our growing season has lengthened. That's one of the positive things of a warming climate. Freezes have gotten later, even though we still, get every once in a while some early freezes, but the trends have been later without a doubt. So this is actually about 2 years old, but it hasn't really changed much, even though last 2 years we were kind of cool in the month of October. The trend has now been for the earliest and the median date and the late date for the first freeze to generally be about 5 to about 7 days later. And that's really interesting stuff. The good news for us here in Chicago is, even though we're expecting somewhat near freezing temperatures, I still think right along the lakefront and the densely populated urban areas, probably like where you live, Mike, maybe not up by you, Peg, we may escape this next freeze, but I think everybody else, pretty much by Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, anything outside most likely is going to go to kaput, which is normal for this time of the year.
Well, yeah, November 1st, you would expect something by the time we get to November. Although I have to tell you, walking down the street the other day, roses in full bloom. I've got raspberries in my ripe raspberries in my backyard, which I discovered yesterday. And Kathleen doesn't even know this. If she's listening upstairs, she knows I'm going to pick some of those raspberries today. It's unbelievable.
I was over on Cicero and Melrose last week and walked past someone's house, and there was this beautiful rose bush, still in full bloom. It almost looked like it was something you would see like in maybe in early June. So the wet weather has helped out. The cool weather has helped out with the lawns, and this is extremely beneficial going into the winter season. The trees, though, I think we can all agree are lacking color, but in some areas, if you get out into some parts of forest preserves, especially on a day like today, where the sun has that nice bright low angle, early in the morning or late in the afternoon, you get some pretty vivid colors.
Yeah, there are still isolated areas where you see nice colors. But what I will say about the trees and the weather is this is a good, as you said, it's a good setup for the winter because the roots are going to absorb this moisture, particularly conifers need this going into the winter. So even if the color's not good, we're not going to see, well, it's interesting with trees because they're so large, they can manifest problems months or even years later. It'll be interesting to see what happens given that we had such long dry spells in the summer, but going into the winter as they're going to dormancy, they're absorbing this water. So I'm guessing that we'll have a good spring and that the trees will leaf out rather nicely next year. I'm hoping that. Not an arborist, but from what I know about how trees react to weather and especially rain in the fall, this is a good sign.
Yeah, and even though it looks dry for the next 5 to 7 days and cold as we would normally expect, the pattern has become quite active. We had one large storm come into California last week. We had that mid-latitude cyclone basically go right over the top of us last Sunday and Monday. A big storm system moved up the East Coast. And it's pretty amazing. I was with a couple of friends last night from United Airlines. We got together. We kind of do a powwow like every 6 months or so. And we were talking about how quickly the atmospheric river out across the Pacific Ocean, was able to latch on to some of the dynamics and developed, literally a 944 millibar low. And that was not associated with an ex-typhoon. So that warm blob of water across the North Pac became very instrumental in producing a phenomenally large area of low pressure. And, these are some of the things that when scientists study areas of warm water due to a warming climate, you also have to be able to take into account that even though you're in a drought, when you see that, there's a chance that you can get some very, very heavy rainfall. And you got to be careful about just saying that if you're in a dry pattern, you got to stay dry. And that's the difference between climate change and climate variability. Because if you look at 4 or 5 months of dry weather, and then you get 2 months of rain in 1 month, if you look at just the end of the year seasonal totals, it didn't change too much from the long term. And someone could argue, well, what happened? But when you look at it from a standpoint of climate variability, and you go from drought, heat wave, and then heavy rainfall, then you got to worry about the mudslides and also some of the landslides as well, which we did not have as much of that. And that was a good thing. But the bottom line is that allows you to teach it on a more broader scale so that policymakers can adapt and mitigate. And then you're not just looking at one number. Like with drought, there was an excellent write-up by Trent Ford, who's the state of Illinois climatologist. I'll send it to you guys, talking about perspectives on this year's drought and how little impact it had on agriculture due to the timing of the rains. And we've talked about this before, these, quote, $1 million rains, which if they come at the right time could actually save a crop. So when you look at the overall numbers this year, we're probably going to end up somewhat near normal rainfall. But if you look at when it occurred, you had some really, really dry periods there between June, July, and August. But the fact that we did get rain, quite a bit of it in the month of June, I should say the latter half of June, it kind of saved the crops going into the time of the year when they needed it most. So that's why you just don't look at like someone's cholesterol and say, oh my God, this is what you are. And then that person ends up living to 95. There's other things that go on. So again, when someone just takes like a number like climate change, a rainfall or temperature, it makes things way too easy to define, and it also makes things way too easy for other people to offend, if that's a good word to use at that point for climate deniers.
All right, well, let's look at some of those maps that you sent us. Here's the 7-day rainfall. And it's real easy to see where the rain was.
Yeah, and then we finally got the heavier axis a little bit further north. In fact, when you get to the 30-day rainfall, you'll see that places like Rockford and Waukegan actually got more rain than everywhere else. And again, when you look at that, even southern areas of Wisconsin, just northwest Walworth County or northeast Walworth County, Kenosha County, between 8 and 10 inches. And when I was driving northwest yesterday, I was looking at some of the ponds and the rivers, and they're all doing really well. And then you go even further south across central Illinois, and you had 10 to 15 inches of rain for the month of October. I mean, there are some areas in central Illinois that are going to have record rainfall for the month of October. Now, I don't know how they're doing down there from a standpoint of harvesting their crops.
Well, funny you should mention that, because our buddy Patrick Skatch sent another report to me yesterday. He says, I just heard from my farmer friend they cannot go back in the fields for 5 days, still too wet. About 4 to 20-hour days to complete harvest. This coming Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning, lows will be about 28 for him. Very concerned about freeze damage to unharvested crop if below 32, if that remains for more than a couple of hours. So that's our report from Pat Skatch.
Yeah, and that's a really great piece of information, because not only do you have to worry about rain, but as you'll show with the next few maps, quite a bit of cold as well.
Well, I'm going to try to get that, but let's look at in the past what we were looking at in the past 30 days.
Yeah, temperature-wise. So this shows you how warm we've been from a standpoint of overnight lows. This is a trend that we've seen in August. This is a trend that we've seen in September. This is a trend that we've seen in October. And when you have that area of pink, where you're 8 to 10 degrees, if not 10 plus above normal for an overnight low, even if you're 5 degrees above normal during the day, your surplus, or during the afternoon for maximum temperature, your surplus for the day is about 7.5 inches. This is also one of the reasons why the lakes are at near record warmth for this late in the season. Now, granted, we have cooled off quite a bit the last couple of days, mainly due to the fact that it's been raining. But even last week, Southern Lake Michigan buoy was showing about 60. I think it's now down to about 57. And I don't know if Peg has some updated information on it.
57.2 right now at the Wilmette buoy.
Yeah, and again, that's about 7 degrees above normal from where we should be right now. And what's going to be really interesting is when this next cold air mass comes down, is it going to be enough to produce not lake effect rain, but lake effect snow? It doesn't have that type of low level flow. It looks like it's too much from the northwest, but there's going to be a lot of clouds, and there's definitely going to be some lake effect rain showers and even some snow showers, probably by Monday night or Tuesday, up across Lake Superior into northern part of Lower Michigan.
So that was average minimum temperature departure from mean. Here is average maximum temperature.
Yeah, so what this shows you here is that we were running about 5 to 6 degrees above normal for an afternoon high. But when you can get that warm at night, that shows you either A, you had a lot of humidity in the air, or B, had a lot of cloud cover, or C, had a lot of rain. And we basically had all three. And then you go all the way north, Mike, to International Falls, and you can see there's actually a pocket of plus 10. And so International Falls into the Superior, Wisconsin area, all the way through the northern part of Michigan, and even Ohio. That's a large area of temperatures, about 6 to 8 degrees above normal. So this wasn't a small area. This was a large area. And the scary thing about this is this was not due to increased tropical storm or hurricane activity in the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic, as we sometimes see that. This was basically the warm blob of water over the North Pacific Ocean pushing some of these systems further inland and then taking the moisture from the Gulf and pulling it northward. So we're now seen to be getting some of this abnormal warming from not only the Gulf and the Atlantic, but also the Pacific Ocean as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the drought map here, and that has changed a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. But again, even though parts of Northern Lake, parts of McHenry County are in severe drought, These numbers can sometimes be deceiving because this is, again, the amount of rain that's fallen over a long period of time. So while large reservoirs of water, if you want to call it that, like a lake or a riverbed or a watershed, might be less than average for the amount of liquid that they have, the ground has certainly soaked it up. And when you get 4 to 5 inches of rain this time of the year, it stays in the ground a lot longer than if you get it in like the middle of June or July. There's just much less evaporation. So this has actually been, and I'll share that report with you because I think the Illinois State climatologist does a really good job of explaining, even though some of these areas have severe drought conditions for a period of time or extreme drought, it didn't have the impact as you would normally see.
All right. And for our coming temps here, you can't actually read the numbers very well, but just looking at the blue gives you an idea of what we're going to experience in the next few days.
Yeah. This is the minimum temperature map for tomorrow morning, which shows a low of 29 at Rockford, a low of 32 at Aurora, a low of 32 at Kankakee, a low of 32 out in Ottawa. Anywhere where you see that kind of lighter blue, that's temperatures generally below 30. So that's one of the reasons why there's a freeze warning in effect for areas basically outside of the urban areas of Cook County. So Northwest Cook County could actually see temperatures, generally right at 30 degrees. And then even places, to the south and west, we sometimes talk about areas always to the west and northwest of the city, but even to the south and southwest, you can get pretty darn cold. So that's tomorrow morning's low temperature.
And then you look at it encroach upon the air. It just gets larger as we go on.
Yeah. And this definitely shows that this is just not a one-day event. This is a 2-day, if not a 3-day event. So the front is actually moving through right now, but it's more like a Pacific cold front where you get some stratocumulus clouds coming in because there's still some decent moisture in it. But on top of that, there's going to be a fair amount of wind. So I know you don't have it on there, but the wind chill map, which I did include, literally shows the wind chills probably in the low to mid 20s. So if you've been getting away, walking your dog or being outside without hat, scarf, or gloves.
Without a coat.
That may change. Yeah.
Are you talking about wind chills right now or tomorrow or when?
No. Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and Wednesday morning, they're going to be in the mid-20s.
And look at this. Okay, look at the map for Tuesday, and then look what happens on Wednesday. Wow.
Yeah, you can see it goes all the way, further south, and temperatures are now down in the mid-20s. So we'll probably have a freeze warning for the areas north and west of the city. I think we already have one issued by the Weather Service. For tonight.
Yeah, I saw that show up on my phone this morning. Yeah.
Yep, and then there'll most likely be probably a hard freeze, which is when temperatures go down below 28 degrees. But this is basically going to take care of the growing season pretty much in all the areas that have been, quite a bit on the surplus side. Literally, we're going from like almost late September weather to like the middle of November weather in a matter of 5 days.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool
stuff.
And on top of that, in a matter of hours. But this is going to be a lot of wind with this. This is going to be one of those where you're like walking outside going, yikes. Things have changed very quickly.
And this is what Pat Scatch was referring to. If you look at central Illinois and what the farmers will be dealing with in the next couple of days.
What's really cool on this map, you can also see the impact of the warmer lake water. So if you look at like northern Indiana, southwest lower Michigan, you can see that area has temperatures that may not get below 45 degrees because the lake, as Peg mentioned, is 57. So not only will there be warming of the lake, and you can see that also over into Ohio and northwest Pennsylvania, but there's probably going to be a fair amount of clouds and also lake effect snow. If the winds become a little bit more northerly, which I think they will do on Wednesday, we'll probably see a little bit more of a fetch coming in off the lake. Two things will happen. Temperatures downtown won't be as cold because you'll have a lake effect warming. but we'll also have clouds and also probably lake effect sprinkles. I don't think it's cold enough for lake effect snow yet.
All right. Well, you were talking about these maps, so that tells us why we're going to have cooler temps.
Yeah, and this first, 6 to 10 days, covers a 5-day period, but this is really more so for like days 6, 7, and 8. Once you get into day 9 and 10, it actually warms up a bit. So we'll have a little spike of warmer weather around here. It looks like next Saturday and Sunday, next weekend actually looks warmer than this weekend. So even though we made it into like the upper 50s yesterday, we'll probably be mid 50s today. There's a pretty good chance we may take a run back at 60 to 65.
Wow.
For next week. Yeah. But only briefly. Only in that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday period. Because I think next, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just looking at my calendar real quickly here. Next Sunday is the 7th. So that'd be more so like the 7th, 8th, and 9th. We'll see. Actually, even Saturday. So really like the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. We'll see a nice 3 or 4 day warm up. And it's really interesting, because Halloween is on a Sunday this year. It pushes the changeover back to standard time a week later. So by the time we get to Friday and Saturday of this coming week, sunrise is going to be at almost 7:30 in the morning. That's I gotta double check on that, but that might be the latest sunrise we have all year. Because even like the first or second day of winter, I think sunrise is about like 7:18 or 7:19. So it's actually going to be darker at the end of this week. I think that it actually is going to be on the 24th or 21st to 24th of December.
Yeah. All right. Before we let you go, this is awfully cool, and you sent this, the Aurora forecast.
Yeah, we actually, as weather nerds, we actually walked out on the back deck of my friend's home in Aurora. I'm looking at the map there of Schaumburg last night, looking for it. Couldn't see anything. Probably too much light pollution, or it just didn't get far enough south.
Yeah.
But this is actually the forecast for today. But the forecast for yesterday wasn't much different. In fact, that area of green was a little bit further south. And if you want, Mike, you can share that link with your listeners. But the link is literally spaceweather.com. And it's a great link that shows you, the extent of the aurora forecast, the type of coronal mass ejection. I think it was like a level 3, which was pretty good. And then the pictures bear it out that in some areas of the world, this is up in Iceland, it looked pretty darn good. Wow. And also up in Finland. I think the next one.
Yeah, I don't have that photo. I grabbed the Iceland one, but I didn't have a chance to grab the other one. But it's pretty. But
yeah, here's the thing: the website that Peg was using before, windy.com. If you click on that site and then go to the camera page, I spent about 5 minutes early this morning when I put together the report here, looking at different places up across 70 to 80 degrees at their webcams. You can actually go back in time trying to find areas that may have had the northern lights. I didn't find any, but I'll go back and look again. But spaceweather.com is one, and then windy.com is one. If you really want to, waste some time being indoors on a day like today, you can find the northern lights.
You don't want to waste time being indoors today because it's going to be the
last.
It's
beautiful out.
Yeah. Semi-nice day that we're going to have for a while.
Mike's all dressed for trick-or-treating already.
I'm all ready for trick-or-treating. I cannot get the cape. There we go.
Oh my God! Well, at least this year we don't have to go as winter coats. You can actually go as a costume. Yeah, it's been it's been that way the last couple of years with COVID, and then 2019. Remember, we had 3.5 inches of snow.
The snow. Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah, remember that?
Snow. Remember that?
Yep, I'm going as a IDOT snowblower.
Well, guess that's good. I like that, but I want to show you. I just the site. I finally got the site to work, and here it is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and then when you go up into the camera site, and you go into just to the right of that go up to just to the right of that orange ball. That'll make it larger. And this is actually the square right outside where the UN Climate Summit is taking place.
No, in the camera on the upper left, Mike.
Oh, in the upper left? Okay.
Where it shows the square. So
yeah.
click on the far right next to the yellow dot. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So, Glasgow is, I think it's like 57 degrees north. So they get dark this time of the year at almost, I think, 4:30 in the afternoon. They have really, really late, really early sunrise and really late really late sunrises and really early sunsets. So we'll see what happens at this square. I don't know what it looks like. There's like steps that lead up to something on the other side of that statue. I'm not too sure what that is, but it definitely looks important. And with the climate summit taking place, we'll see if there's anything that comes from that. And hopefully they'll be able to come out of that summit with a clearer idea of where we're heading. I mean, I know that's something we can talk about next week.
Yeah, I think we should talk a little bit about the summit next week. But right now, we need a forecast.
Yeah, and you guys will be at the Green Expo, right? Next week?
Well, it's virtual. It's online.
Okay, all right. So you're not going to be there.
No, nobody will be, but it's going to be a great event, and there's lots of great stuff online.
But we'll have exhibit booths, but we aren't actually there. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, sunshine is out. Cold front's coming through. 55 will be the high today. 35 will be the low tomorrow, but the wind chill probably about 25. You'll start out sunny tomorrow morning, but because the atmosphere is so cold in the upper levels, we'll immediately go cloudy like by 10 o'clock. So it'll be overcast with the northwest wind of about 20 miles an hour tomorrow with a high of like 45, but it'll feel like the mid 30s. There's going to be two different waves of cold air that comes through. The first one tonight, and then the second one Tuesday night. And I think the second one Tuesday night is really going to drop everybody into the mid to upper 20s. So typically this time of year, you need more than just one shot of cold air. You need like two. And this is probably not going to be a frost event because there's going to be a lot of wind and the atmosphere is going to dry out. But it's definitely going to be a killing freeze. So I know myself, I got to take my hanging plants in. They'll probably survive tonight, but they won't definitely survive tomorrow.
No, today's the day to get them in. I've been slowly bringing mine in. I've only got a couple more outside, so I'm looking good here.
Yeah, and other than that, warmer weather for next Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then a much, much more significant cool down for about the 10th to about the 12th to about the 14th. So I want to focus a little bit more on longer term as we head into the month of November. But next week when we talk, we'll definitely unpack whatever happened at the UN Climate Summit. Hopefully it's good news.
We should do a longer segment.
Yeah, that maybe we'll. Let's if you're interested, we could probably do a longer segment next week and talk about the climate action.
I'll just bring a bigger coffee mug.
Exactly. Well, I need mine.
And I'll have my window closed by next week. Apparently, it's still open.
Right.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm ready.
Here we go. Everybody get your coffee cups. Here's to fixing climate change. Woo. Boy, I'm leaking all over. I got drips all over my coffee cup. All right. I have drips on my coffee cup. All right, Rick, thank you so much. We will.
Micula, there you go.
Micula. We'll talk to you next week. All right, take care.
See you guys.
Okay. All right. And the one thing I didn't play today that I really meant to play. In honor of Halloween. I also didn't play my little friend here who took one look at me and said, How's that? All right, if we got Halloween covered, if we're all covered here, sort of.
Anything after that, we're going to just start having YouTube shut us down.
Yeah. So I say, let's get out of here.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Okay. I need my bat. Where's my bat? I want to thank all the folks who are on the show, and that includes Karen Hudson and Chris Petersen and Kathy Martin from SRAP. There's my little friend. Okay. I want to thank Rick DiMaio, Kathleen, as always, Lagata the cat, and Basil the dog. And until next time, go green or
go home.
Go home. I can't find the figure. Oh, there it is. Goodbye. Whoa.
Didn't miss much.